Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm sharing a layout for Papermaze, so this video classes as an advertisement. I'm still working with the Simple Stories Cozy Days collection, and for this layout I wanted to use this cut file from Peartree Cutfiles as my title. As you can see, I've backed it off camera. I've used two of the pattern papers for the actual letters themselves. So that lovely blue paper is called Sweaters and Boots, I think it's the B-side, and the yellow kind of gingham pattern is the Happy Holiday paper. And then I backed the walking boots with the B-side of the 2x2 Elements pattern paper. So I did all of that off camera because it takes me a while and it's nice to do sort of as you're watching telly, so I didn't bother recording that. But I wanted my background to have a little bit of mixed media on it. So as you saw at the beginning there, I tested it on a bit of A4 paper, just scrap paper first, just to check that it would work okay. So I'm using a Jane Davenport mermaid marker. They're like watercolour pens. It's the brown one, it's called Reef, and I've never used the brown before. It's not really a colour I reach for. But I'm just using that like a water brush on the back of some bubble wrap, and then printing that down on my background just to leave the impression of the bubble wrap circles. And it really reminded me of like mud splatters, and on this particular day in the photos my little boy was quite happily kicking mud at me from puddles all day, so I thought it worked really well. I've also just mixed a bit with some water there onto some packaging just to add some splatters in. There's a bit more detail to the background. And then I've also got two, they are Cosmic Shimmer iridescent watercolour paints. I love the Cosmic Shimmer products, they're brilliant. They're so shimmery and shiny. These two are, I've got Pale Russet, and the one I'm using in the moment is Dark Bronze. And that dark bronze one has got sort of iridescent tones of green in it as well, which matched really well with my photos because there's a little bit of green in my pictures, but not so much green in the collection. So I just went a bit mad adding some paint splatters. The section on the right there, I've gone a bit heavier because that's going to be visible through the cut file, whereas the left there is going to be covered by my photos, so I've just left that a bit bare. I dried all my mixed media off camera with a heat tool, and then I just pieced everything together just to make sure I was happy with my mixed media before I moved on. So I'm backing both of my photos onto white cardstock. I find that just having a white border just helps them pop off the page a little bit. And then I'm going to back them both with a patterned paper from the collection. So I use the same two papers that I used to back the letters in my cut file. So I've got the lovely soft blue with the white polka dots, that is Sweaters and Boots. So I use that on one, and the other one is that Happy Holiday sort of yellowish mustard gingham checked pattern paper. And by using those, it's just helped to bring a bit more of those blue and mustardy tones to the left side of my layout. At the moment all the colour was sort of sitting on the right with that cut file, so I needed to extend the colour tones onto the left, so that was a good way of doing that. And as usual I just use the edge of my scissor blade to distress my edges. As is usual with me, I love dimension on layouts. I'm not a fan of flat layouts, so I always like to add dimension when I can. So I use this adhesive craft foam behind my photos and my cut file. This stuff's brilliant. It's got like peel-back sticky on one side of it, so it's really pliable, so it's easy to sort of go around the curves of letters and things on cut files. So it's really, really easy to back cut files with it, just to raise them up. So just adding some sticky PVA glue to the back of that just to stick everything down in place. And it was at this point I realised that the top of my boots and the G were going to sit on my photos, which were already raised up with craft foam. Oh, sorry, my little boy in the corner there in his dressing gown. So I just peeled the craft foam back off because I didn't really want that raised a second time above the photo. So it just brings everything to the same layer. And then I just go about embellishing. So most of the embellishments I've used on this layout, or certainly the smaller elements, have been fussy cut from the patterned papers. So the cute little hedgehog and raccoon were from patterned paper I used in my last layout. I think it was called Comfy Cozy off the top of my head. So they're fussy cut from there. And then at the top of the screen there you can see I've got loads and loads of those leaves. That paper is absolutely gorgeous. It's called Harvest Wishes, and one side of it is just completely covered in leaves and little branches with berries on that just are brilliant for fussy cutting. So I'm just fussy cutting it as I go at the moment, but that page is going to last a long time because you get so much from it. And luckily for me, I've got 3 sheets of it, so it will keep me going for probably a few years yet. So I've fussy cut those out, and then all the bits you can see I've added in at the top of my photos there. They are from the journal bits and pieces pack. It's like an ephemera pack. So I've popped a few up there. I'm not necessarily going to journal on them. The bigger one there that kind of goes up into a point, I might write the date and location on. But the rest I'm just going to leave as they are. I just stress all the edges of them and just use them as layers and to extend that layout up a bit at the top. And I've got another bit there that's also from the journal bits and pieces, that Autumn Days. Just slotted that behind my cut file at the top there just to fill that space. And this photo was only taken a couple of weeks ago, so it was very much an autumn day, so that worked really well. I'm just making my way around the layout now, sticking everything down. The majority of it I raise up onto foam pads. So that little umbrella on the right there is from the Sweaters and Boots patterned paper. I've fussy cut that out, and it worked perfectly for me because we did get caught in a little bit of rain on this day, so that worked well. The same with the scarf I've just put above the umbrella, that's from Sweaters and Boots. And then I'm just raising up all these leaves on little foam pads. Just making sure I've got each colour sort of represented in each cluster, so there's sort of an even spread of colour across the layout, and just sort of plugging any gaps I see that I'm not happy with a couple of those leaves. And then on the actual cut file itself, those 2 tiny bits are from the journal bits and pieces again. I've got one that says love that I've put in between the 2 O's of good, and I've put one on the boots that says so blessed. Just spreads a little bit more colour over to the cut file and breaks up the blues and the yellows nicely. So at this point I think I'm almost done, and I hold the layout up to have a look, and the top right hand corner looked a little bit bare, so I've decided that I want to create a small cluster up the top there. So I just had a quick flick through the journal bits and pieces pack and picked out a couple of bits, and then I've cut out one of the tags from this tag pattern paper. As you can see, it's absolutely stunning. One side the tags are sort of fully decorated, on the other side I've just got a patterned piece at the top of each one. So I've selected the tag that's got the same patterned paper that I used to back the walking boots in the cut file. So I'm just going to have that kind of hanging down, upside down from the top corner there, and just add a little banner piece and another little bit that says, I change it in the end. The one I go for is the rusty coloured So Grateful, but I do flick between the 2 there. I've got one that says Give Thanks and the So Grateful. The blue worked okay because there are blue tones in the layout, but I kept looking at it, and in the end I decided the So Grateful one looked a bit better. I've got this really thick gardener's twine that I've tied through both of my tags on the page. Once I start sticking things down, it's bugging me. I'm not really happy with it. It's quite bulky and very, very rustic looking. There's me trying to decide which bit to use. I'll get there in the end. So that gardener's twine doesn't stay on the layout. I just really wasn't happy with it. So I pull that out in a second and I replace it with some embroidery thread. It's like 6-strand embroidery thread, and I go for a rusty colour that kind of matches some of the leaves and the umbrella and the darker mustard tones in the sort of mustard gingham paper that I've used for my cut file. When I'm using embroidery thread to put through my tags like this, I do like to kind of double or triple it over a bit so that you get more than just 2 strands hanging down from the hole. So I just double it over and thread it through and then kind of loop it back on itself. Just adds a lot more interest to the page. So I'm almost done, but then I remember I've got this lovely Simple Stories washi tape, so I take a bit off and kind of rip it in half really roughly to give it sort of a ragged, distressed edge, and I just add a bit to the top and the bottom of the layout there, just to add a bit more colour to those corners. And I think the last thing I do on camera is add some gold splatters, because everybody loves gold splatters, right? So I cover my photos up to make sure I don't get any on my little boy's face, and just spread that around there. And off camera I also add some glittered Nouveau drops in Golden Sunset. And that's my layout finished. So thank you very much for joining me today. And one thing I did forget to mention, the paper I've used to cut my cut file was the Stonehenge Basil Basics from the Matchmaker pack, so it works really well with this collection. So please remember to like and subscribe. You can read about the layout on the Papermaze blog. I'm also on Instagram at Precious Pages Papercraft, and this collection is now available in the Papermaze shop online, so head over to Papermaze and have a nosy, because it's a really great collection. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.